Welcome to online classes. I am Shilpa, lecturer in DCME, working at Dr. B.R. Ambedkar GMR Polytechnic, Karimnagar. As we are discussing OOPS through C++, in previous lecture we discussed virtual functions, when we need to go for virtual functions. Before that we discussed what is meant by multipath inheritance. So in multipath inheritance there may be a chance of getting multiple copies of base class into the derived class through different ways. That is normally here using path 1 and path 2, that is through parent 1 and through parent 2. So here, in order to get only single copy of base class into the derived class, we use virtual base class. And after that we discussed about virtual functions. In virtual functions, if we derived a class from the base class, and if we use same names for the functions in both the classes, that is base and derived classes, then at the time of running, in order to call the exact function from either source, that is parent or child, we use virtual functions. Previously we discussed virtual base classes. That is, there we simply make the base class as virtual at the time of deriving intermediate classes which are base class for a child class. So there, in order to avoid the duplication of members of the base class in derived class, we use virtual base classes. Whereas these virtual functions nothing but runtime polymorphism. So in virtual functions, that is when both base and derived classes are having same functions with same prototype, then in order to avoid the ambiguity at the time of execution, we make the functions as virtual. That is, the functions which are in the base class, we make them as virtual functions using the keyword virtual, so that at the time of execution, when we are trying to call the function, then the compiler will take care which function has to be called, that is the function of the base class or the function of the derived class. So here we must access virtual functions through the use of a pointer declared as a pointer to the base class. That is, when we are using these virtual functions, we need to create a pointer variable for the base class. Using this pointer variable only, we are going to access the functions of base as well as the derived classes. So always we need to declare a pointer variable for the base class, and we use the object name the same way as any other member function to call the virtual function. So as we created pointer variable, normally we use the object which is created for a class in order to call the member functions of that class. Likewise here also we use only the object name. That is, here we are created pointer variable, that is nothing but object. So here, by assigning the object of that class, address of the object of that class to this pointer variable, we are going to call the member functions of that class. So we use the object name the same way as any other member function to call the virtual functions. And we can achieve runtime polymorphism only when a virtual function is accessed through a pointer to the base class. That is, when we can achieve this runtime polymorphism. We can achieve this runtime polymorphism only when a virtual function is accessed through a pointer of the base class. Until and unless if you are not access the virtual functions using the pointer variable of the base class, that is not a runtime polymorphism. Runtime polymorphism can be achieved when we call the member functions of the classes using base class pointer variable. Base class pointer variable. So here where we can we will discuss one application of these virtual functions. Normally there is one bookshop which sells both books and videotapes. So there is one bookshop which sells both books and videotapes. So here we can create a class known as media that stores the title and price of a publication. That is, here first we create a class media which is having title and price, because if you consider the book and videotapes, both are having title of book and title of video and price of these two, book and video. So for that, here I am creating one class media which is having these two members, title and price, and we can create two derived classes. Okay, so along with these variables, that is title and price, the book may consist of number of pages and videotape may consist of playing time. So for that, here I am deriving two derived classes from the base class, that is in this case media, and one class is used to store the number of pages, okay, and another is for storing the playing time of a tape. So if you observe this particular diagram, that is, here this is the class media which is having title and price of the book as well as the tape. Okay, and here this book is the derived class from the media which may consist of number of pages, and this tape is another derived class from the media and which consists of playing time. Okay, so we can say this is one application of virtual functions. So here we are going to discuss we are going to implement a program for using these virtual functions. So here this is the class media, title and price, they are in protected mode, and public, one constructor here I am using, and I am passing two variables, one is of type char and another one is of type float, and I am copying this character string into the character array, that is title, and the value which passed to the media constructor, that is a, to the price. So here this constructor is used to initialize title and price. So here we are simply initializing them, and here this particular media class is having one function, that is display with empty body, and we are making this function as virtual. How we can say this function is virtual? Because here we are using the keyword virtual. Okay, so this is the virtual function. So that means here we are going to derive, or we are going to use the same name, function name, that is void display with empty parameters in its derived classes. By simply saying this, we can say that we are going to use the function with same return type and with same parameters, that is with the same prototype. We are going to use the same function in its derived classes. So this is virtual function, and in the base class it actually empty virtual function, because here we are not at all defining any definition, we are not providing any definition for this particular display function. So I can say that this is a empty virtual function, and from that media I am going to derive a class, that is book. Okay, and public media, and it is having, this book is having number of pages, so that is of type int pages, and public, again one constructor for this class, that is book, with three parameters, name, price, and number of pages. Okay, so it accepts three parameters, but what it is doing is simply it is passing first two arguments to the media constructor, that is its base class constructor. It is here, it is not using, or it is not initializing these variables to the variables of this class. It is assigning these values to the variables of its base class. So how it is assigning? Using or calling the constructor of the base class, that is media s comma a. So here these two parameters will be sent to the constructor media, so that here this media accepts those two parameters and assigns those values to the title and price. Okay. Now the third parameter is assigned to the variable pages, and see here. So as I discussed here, it is a empty virtual functions. How I can say, because it is not having any body, and as we are making this function as virtual, that means we are going to use the name of the same function, that is display, with same prototype in its derived classes. So see here, we are using the same function with same prototype in its derived class, that is book void display, and here I am going to declare or define this member function out of the class. Okay, and as we discussed, we are going to derive another class, that is tape, from the media. So class tape public media, and it is having one variable, that is time of type float, and again it is using one constructor to initialize values for title, price of base class members, and this is to assign its own member, that is time. Okay, so here simply again we are passing these two variables to the constructor its base class constructor, that is media s comma a, and t2 time, okay, and simply display, again it is having same member function with same prototype, void display. Now here, in order to show you, that is we are using this virtual functions concept, that's why the main that is base class void display is empty, and we are making that as virtual, and here it is having declaration only in book, and even void display in tape only declaration. Now we are writing the definition of both the classes, both the member functions, that is void display of a book and tape here. So void book scope resolution display simply displays all the three variables of the book, that is title of the book, price of the book, and pages of the book, number of pages of the book. So here see out title, pages, and price. Like that for tape, void tape display, and it is displaying title, minutes, and price, title of the tape, price of the tape, and time of the tape, that is playing time of the tape. Okay, so in main, what we have to do, first we need to, as we are sending values to the constructors, first we need to access the values. So for that, here we are declaring three variables, title, price, and time. Title is new, char of 30 size, and float, price, and time. These are the three variables which I created for local for the main function. And here first I want to get the details of the book, that is detail of title of the book, and price of the book, and number of pages of the book. Okay, so here enter book details. So title, price, it is that is reading into the appropriate variable. Okay, and see out pages, seen pages. So I think in here we are not declared number of int type of pages. So here even we need to include int pages. Okay, so we need to read those three variables. So we read those three variables, and we are passing them to the constructor by creating object for the class book. So book 1, title, price, and pages. So here it invokes the constructor definition of the derived class book. Okay, likewise now we get the details of tape, that is title of the tape, price of the tape, and playing time. Okay, and read into the appropriate variables, title, price, and time, and call the constructor by passing these three variables. So for tape we are going to pass the values, so we need to create an object, and at the same time we need to pass the object for that constructor or object, so that it will call the constructor of the class tape. And after that, what I am doing is here I am creating two pointer variables for the base class. Media, if you observe, this media is the base class for book and tape. So here I am creating two pointer variables, okay, using the array list of 0 and list of 1. And now what I have to do, I need to store the address of the book object to first pointer variable of base class, that is list of 0, and the address of second derived class to the second pointer variable of the base class, that is list of 1. List of 1 equals to address of tape 1 and list of 0 equals to address of book 1. So now using these two pointer variables which are created for the base class, we are going to access the member functions of the derived classes, that is book and tape. So here simply cout for our understanding purpose media details, and media is consisting of book and tape. So for that here cout book. And so how I can get the details of the book? By calling the display function of the book derived class. So how I can call the display function of book derived class? Using the base class pointer variable, because here that is list of 0, because here I use this pointer variable of the base class to store the address of derived class object, that is book 1. So using that list of 0 arrow display, I can able to access the display method which is defined in derived class book. And after that cout tape, and I am going to call the member function of display of second class, that is derived class tape. So cheppandi sir. So by creating that is by using the second pointer variable of base class, that is list of I, we are going to call the display of second derived class, that is tape in this case. Okay, so this is the program. Now try to execute this program using our IDE Turbo C++. So first hash include iostream hash include kone.h, and first we are declaring a class, that is media, with protected members, protected char title, of some size, and float price. Okay, and we are going to declare the constructor to initialize values for this two, title and price. So media is the name of the constructor, and char string comma float a. So here this is a parameters constructor which accepts two parameters and assigns s to title and a to price. strcpy title comma s, string copy title comma s, and price equal to a. And we are making display as virtual function, so I am using the keyword virtual, and the prototype is void display and empty function, virtual function. Okay, and close of the class here. that is media class here. And using this media I am going to create one class book. So in public derivation, public media, okay, and it is having one data member, that is pages, into pages, public, and one constructor book which accepts three parameters: char, s, float, a, int, p. And here I am passing first parameters to constructor base class constructor, so s comma a, and I am assigning the third parameter to pages, so pages equal to p, and void display, and I want to declare this out of the class, and now I am deriving one more class type from same class, that is public media, and it is having one variable float time, and in public one constructor, that is step, and with three parameters: char, s, float, a, and float t. And I am passing first two parameters to the constructor base class constructor, that is media, s comma a, and time equal to t, This is only the definition of this constructor, okay, and it is having its own member function, that is void display, and end of the class. Now declare these displays of book and type out of the class. So for that the syntax is void first book scope resolution, and the function name is display, and simply see out all these variables. See out slash n title, the variable title, and see out slash n pages, see out slash n prices, the variable price, So this is display of this price, and close of the function, and then void type and display, see out slash n title, and see out slash n playtime, that is time in minutes, and see out slash n price. Price. Okay, so now write the main function int main and declare variables star title equal to new char 30 and float price comma time and int pages and see out enter book details. Enter book details. Okay, see in that is title, price and pages. So see out title, that is enter title. Enter title and seen into the variable title and see out enter price. Seen price and see out enter pages, number of pages. Seen into appropriate variable, that is pages here. Pages. So like that we enter details of the book, that is title, price and pages. Okay, and after that create constructor for the book class and pass these variables as arguments, that is title comma price comma price comma. So pass these to these variables, pages, price, title, price, comma pages. Pass these to the constructor and after that get the details of take. See out enter tape details, enter tape details. See out title, enter title, same. Okay, see out enter tape title. Okay, and seen into title and see out tape details and enter tape price and seen price and see out playing time. Seen into time. scene into time and pass this to the class tape by creating object. So tape 1 and pass these three variables, that is title, comma, price, comma time. Okay, call them and that's it. And after that create two pointer variables to the base class, that is media star list of 2 and assign list of 0 equal to address of book 1 and list of 1 equal to address of tape 1. Here book 1 and tape 1 are the objects which are created for the derived classes book and tape. And now see out media details are okay, first one is media consisting of book. So see out book, okay, and list of 0 arrow display function, so that it call only the display function of book class. Okay, and now see out tape, okay, and list of 1 arrow display and return 0 close of the main. So into main variable declaration and better CLR SCR, okay, and variables accessing for book and tape and send them to the constructors and created two pointer variables for the base class and send the addresses of these two derived classes to these two pointer variables and call display functions using these pointer variables, right? Let's ch, okay, slash n. Now save the file. So now we will give a name for that, virtual functions, okay, and Alt F9 to compile one error. So string copy, as we are using this string copy, we need to include string.h, hash include string.h, okay. Now F2 save, Alt F9, no errors, Control F9, enter book details and enter, that is enter title. Let us see, price some 350, number of pages also some 400, and enter tape title, maybe some ABC, and price 150, and playing time is 1 hour. Media details are book title, let us see, pages 400, price 350, tape, title ABC 1 minutes. Okay, playing time 1 hour, and but here we printed minutes, so we have to give in 60, and price is 150. Okay, fine. So for the same, if you deleted this virtual, simply see what will happen if you delete this virtual. Okay, and check whether your program will be executed or not, and save it. Alt F9, no errors, Control F9. So always it gives, I don't want to give in detail all these things, because it will give same output. 5 playing time is 60. See, nothing is displayed here. Why? Because that is not a virtual. Okay, so the compiler will get an ambiguity at the time of calling display. So it is not displaying anything, it is not at all calling the display function of any of these classes. Okay, so in order to avoid this problem, we need to use this virtual keyword, right? So again save the file, F2, and compile and run. Of course you will get the correct one, right? Now virtual functions. Rules for virtual functions. What are the rules we have to follow at the time of creating these or using these virtual functions? While a base pointer can point to any type of the derived object, that is, here we are simply creating pointer variable for the base class, and we are assigning the objects of the derived classes to the base class. But the reverse is not true. That means here we cannot assign the base class object to the derived class pointer variables. That is, here if you observe, that is to say, we cannot use a pointer to a derived class to access an object of the base class. We cannot assign the object of the base class to the pointer variable of the derived class. But in order to achieve this runtime polymorphism using these virtual functions, we always assign the derived class object to the base class pointer variable. Okay, and when a base pointer points to a derived class, incrementing it will not make it to the next object of the derived class. So normally we use increment and decrement operators on the pointer variables in order to point the next. But here we cannot use this incrementing that pointer variable to the next object of the derived class. We cannot, though we increment this base pointer variable, we cannot go to the next object of the derived class, and it is incremented or decremented only relative to its base type only, and therefore we should not use this method to move the pointer to the next object. So we cannot use this increment or decrement to move to next object or go to previous object. We cannot use this increment decrement in these pointer variables, and when we are implementing this runtime polymorphism. And if a virtual function is defined in the base class, it need not be necessarily redefined in the derived classes. That is, if you observe the previous example, there that display, we made that display as virtual function. Okay, so there is no necessity that if you want to use that virtual function in its derived classes, then you can redefine the virtual function which is defined in base class in its derived classes. If you don't want to make use, you don't want to use that virtual function in its derived classes, then no need to redefine it. Okay, though we made one function as virtual in the base class, you need not to redefine it in the derived classes. If you want to use the same function name in derived classes, then only you use. Otherwise, simply you can avoid that. And in such cases, calls will invoke the base functions. Okay, if that is the case, then always the call invokes the base function, because here we are not at all redefined that virtual function in the derived classes. Okay, when we are calling it, always as only base class is consisting of that function, it always invokes only the base class function. And what is, these are the rules we need to remember when we are implementing this virtual function. And what is meant by pure virtual function? Okay, it is normal, that is if you observe previous one also, that is also a pure virtual function. Let us see what is the definition of this pure virtual function. It is normal practice to declare a function inside the base class and redefine it in the derived classes. Normally, if you want to use the same function names in derived classes as well as the base classes, then this is a normal practice to make the function in the base class as virtual. The function inside the base class is seldom used for performing any task. That is, here we are not at all defining any definition, we are not providing any definition for the base class virtual function. Okay, that is seldom, and it only serves as a placeholder. It simply, as we are using the same name in its derived classes with the same prototype, so here it simply serves as a placeholder. So by using the first derived class object, we call the function, then it invokes only the first derived class function, and second, like second, third, fourth, but it is not at all calling the base class definition. Okay, so it simply serves as a placeholder. And example, that is, here we have not defined any object of class media, and therefore the function display in the base class has been defined empty. So here we are not at all calling or accessing or invoking the display of media class. Okay, that is, here we are not creating any object for the media, therefore the function display in the base class has been redefined empty. So that's why we simply made that as empty virtual function, open and close, without any definition. And if we specify like that, then that is called as do nothing function. It is not doing anything, it serves as a placeholder only. So do nothing function. And a do nothing function may be defined as follows. So in previous example, we use virtual void display, open close parenthesis, and here open and close curly braces. That is one method to define this do nothing functions, and there is another way to declare do nothing functions, that is by simply virtual void display equal to 0. Such functions are called pure virtual functions. And a pure virtual function is a function declared in a base class that has no definition related to the base class. It is not having any definition related to the base class, only it serves as a placeholder. Okay, so that is called as pure virtual function. And in such cases, the compiler requires each derived class to either define the function or redeclare it as a pure virtual function. So if you make any function as pure virtual function or do nothing function in the base class, if this is the case, then all the derived classes should be define the function or declare it as a pure virtual functions. So when we are using these pure virtual functions, then all its derived classes should have either define the function in its derived classes, or even it has to make that function as pure virtual function in its derived classes. Okay, and a class containing pure virtual functions cannot be used to declare any objects of its own. So here a class containing pure virtual functions cannot be used to declare any object of its own. That is, when we are making a function as pure virtual function in the base class, then we cannot create any object for the base class, and we cannot make use of that base class further. Such classes are called abstract base classes. So here which classes are called as abstract base classes? If you are not creating any object for a particular class, then that class is called as abstract base class. So when we are using these virtual functions, normally we will not create any object for the class. So we can say that class is abstract base class. And the main objective of an abstract class base class are to provide some traits to the derived classes. So in order to provide some services or some rules or some provisions to the derived classes, we use these abstract base classes or versions, and to create a base pointer required for achieving runtime polymorphism. In order to achieve this runtime polymorphism, we use even these pure virtual functions. Okay, so in today's lecture we discussed about virtual function. We have seen one example program for virtual functions, and we discussed rules for virtual functions, and after that we discussed about pure virtual functions, and also we discussed about which class is called as abstract base class. Okay, abstract class, which is called as abstract class. Okay, so this is the virtual functions which are used to implement this runtime polymorphism. Also we discussed about abstract base classes. Thank you.